There is mass casualties in NFL Survivor polls in Week 14 as favorites Miami, Green Bay, Pittsburgh, Houston, and Detroit all lost. We'll debrief all about it and get you ready for Week 15 in NFL Survivor coming up next. Hello, everyone. I'm Eric Lee.
And I'm Michael Wiley, and we're the Fantasy Football Consultants. Eric, our pool has been wiped out. we lost one to that Steelers game, and the remaining five were feeling good until that last-minute field goal by the Giants beating Green Bay. And so guess what? They're all alive again. So I guess that makes for an interesting replay.
Yeah, so a mulligan for those six guys and one gal, excuse me, five guys and one gal. And we'll see what happens next week. Let's just talk about, Michael, a wild week 14. Let's talk about the thing. Hey, I think last week I came in and bragged I got a whole lot of things right, blah, 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 blah. Well, I'll tell you what I got wrong was the ultimate pick, which I made, which was Green Bay. I kind of made fun of Tommy DeVito last week, didn't I? I said, how could they not start Tyrod Taylor? This was a New York Giant team who has by far the worst offensive line in all of football, giving by far league leading in sacks. Green Bay, 0 sacks into the game. DeVito drives them down for the winning score. Explain. You are the genius football mind. Explain to me what happened in that Green Bay game.
Well, I think you got to give a fair amount of credit to taking advantage of the bye week. Dable and Wink Martindale taking advantage of the extra time off and preparing their team for a Packers team that was riding pretty high coming into this game. Yeah, the game was in New York, but the Packers had looked pretty good, both offensively and defensively. Jordan Love just did not look great. But they came back right there at the end, and it looked like they took care of business. I think this is just a good reminder. We saw it throughout the weekend that anything can happen in the NFL. To see Zach Wilson blow out the Houston Texans and make CJ Stroud look kind of bad. And that was obviously surprising. I mean, it was just a crazy weekend.
I know, Michael, some of those fans laughed at me when I said, I'm concerned if Zach Wilson starts, I want to stay away from this Houston game. And I couldn't believe I was saying it myself, but definitely upgrade over Tim Boyle. And he actually looked probably better than he has all season. I will say you and I were dismissed New Orleans mostly because we thought Jameis Winston was going to be starting at air date and his volatility. But turns out Derek Carr played, and they were the pick of those five. Easy win. Everybody else lost or barely won in Baltimore. We warned that the Rams could give Baltimore a good game, and that's exactly what they did.
Yeah, and I would say easy win. That the Saints looked pretty bad throughout that first half as well. So I mean, any team. I mean, what's going on in Kansas City right now? I don't know. How about the Dolphins blowing that game against the Titans at home when they had it in hand against a Titans team that really didn't have anything to play for? It seemed like, other than maybe Vrabel trying to keep his job. I mean, I don't know what to make of what's going to happen in the playoffs. I mean, we're going to have, I think, a losing record team winning that NFC South, and maybe another losing record team getting the 7th seed by in the NFC. And in the AFC, not much better, although it's definitely going to need to take at least 9 and 8 to get in, I think, in the AFC with so many contenders.
Yeah, spoiler alert. Michael and I are going to be doing a show at the beginning of the playoffs talking all about what our predictions are. I think it's going to be super tough, Michael, because, I mean, forget about who's going to win. Yeah, there's a bunch of teams that can win, but each game in that wild card week, I think it's going to be any team could beat another team in the playoffs, especially if you take out the the number one seeds in each league.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, really, the only, if the Niners win out and get the number one seed, maybe the only comfortable win will be whoever, probably the Eagles, will be playing. I think they just have an easier road to finish out the season than the Cowboys do, although the Cowboys look really good right now. So it's fun for fans because it's not just the tyrants winning it all. I think this is one of the reasons we really like NFL. But hey, let's get into this week, week 15, and see if we can't help our viewers out a little bit.
Yeah, we want to let people know that after this week, we're going to change a little bit of our survivor coverage. We will cover week 16 and week 17, or at least as long as we have players involved in our pool. But the format's going to change a little bit. We'll tell you all about that at the end of the show. So let's get ready for week 15. The board is full, Michael. There are 10 games we want you guys to consider. We know a lot of these games may already be selected by these teams. So we want to give you a lot of different options to be thinking about. We're going to break it up into 3 tiers. Let's first talk about the upper tier, the first 3 teams. That is San Francisco, Miami, and Kansas City. Please feel free to disagree with me, but my take is if you have one of these teams still left, then use them this week. I'm much more confident with any of these 3 teams than anyone else on the board. What's your take?
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. Kansas City, I think, is going to come out and make sure that they don't get another loss. Although, man, what a rough couple of games for them. Miami, I think, is a little bit more uncomfortable, partly with the Jets. I know they beat the heck out of the Jets in New York just a few weeks ago. In Miami, I think is going to be really frustrated and going to enjoy being at home yet again by what happened last night. But the Jets defense is strong, and I think we don't know 100% whether Tyreek Hill, he played obviously at the end of that game, but he's got to be a little bit banged up, and they need to be careful with him. They need this win, so I think they'll make sure they get it. But I think 11.5. I can't believe the spread's 11.5 in this game.
I appreciate your caveats, but if you have Miami, this is your last chance, folks. Last chance. It is criminal not to use Miami in Survivor for the entire season. So if I have Miami on the board, I'm using them. Even if somehow you have more than these, you have 2 or 3 of these teams, Miami's my first pick. I get that San Francisco has a lot of future value, but I don't care. I'm using them this week if I don't have Miami in Kansas City. So anyway, let's move on to teams that I think people likely have. So we got a middle tier and a bottom tier. Let's talk about the bottom tier. These 4 teams in the bottom tier, that is the Battle of the Bays, Green Bay and Tampa Bay, Atlanta at Carolina, Cleveland at home versus Chicago, and Las Vegas, your Raiders, are home against the Chargers. They're all 3 or 3.5 point favorites. So lines makers don't have a lot of confidence. I will join them, Michael, in saying that I don't have a lot of confidence. Is there any one game that stands out for you? It does for me of these 4. So at the same time, 1, 2, 3, Atlanta. Oh. Okay, all right. It was a little hard for me to say Atlanta, to put my Survivor life on Atlanta Falcons. It sticks in my throat a little bit. So can I just say the team that's playing Carolina? Is that okay? No, I'll talk about the Carolina game. Go for it. Why do you like Cleveland?
Well, I think they just showed once again that this defense is probably, tied with San Francisco's number 1 defense in the NFL, best in the AFC. And Joe Flacco he's changed the offense for Cleveland. I know he turns the ball over, but he can push the ball down the field like no one else on that offense has done. And they have some weapons. So it just changes the offense, makes them stronger offensively. And Chicago obviously has shown up and been dangerous. They're coming off of they played this last week coming off of a bye, and that's I think really helped them out in that Detroit game. Detroit has looked bad, and Chicago took advantage of that. But I think Cleveland's going to give fits to Justin Fields, and for that reason, I feel good about Cleveland going home and winning this game against Chicago. But hey, after what happened last week, I don't feel confident in anything.
It is interesting, Michael, that normally 3 points is kind of what you get for home field advantage. So in many places, the line is 3 points. Some are 3.5. We have it on ours as 3 points. What they're saying is 8-5 Cleveland on a neutral field is the same as 5-8 Chicago. So Browns, you should be insulted. But I think it's a little bit because of how well Chicago has been playing. And the bounce back almost completely corresponds to the return of Justin Fields. I like this game too, Michael. They would have been my second of the 4 teams that I would have picked. It's just Chicago scares me. They've won 3 of their last 4, and even the one loss was to Detroit, and it was close. But then they beat Detroit, and they beat Minnesota. 2 pretty good wins, and they also beat the Panthers. Who cares? So,
can I just add one thing to that?
Yes.
If Chicago wins this game, they got a really decent chance at winning out. And if they win out, they will make the playoffs. Is that amazing?
You know what? And I want you to know that I take full credit for that, Michael, because they didn't win a game until I put my Survivor Life on the Commanders on a Thursday night, and Chicago won that game and has been winning since. So yeah, that is amazing. What a crazy, crazy story. Amari Cooper should be back and completely healthy, and I think that could give Flacco another major weapon to throw to. So I get it. My pick was Atlanta, who also is there in control of their own destiny to make the playoffs. First place Atlanta, woohoo! Yeah, 6-7, tied with 2 other teams for first place. But I want to talk about Carolina. Carolina, who's lost 6 straight. They lost 12 of 13. They are in my opinion, the worst offense in the NFL right now. Only 2 offenses have been worse: the Patriots and the Giants. And last week, the Patriots and Giants actually looked half decent on offense. I think they're just overmatched. They just don't have the talent. Atlanta played Carolina first game of the season and won by 14 points. So that's the route. But I don't know about you. Atlanta is not my pick because I like other games more. It's in this mid-range. So let's talk about it. We've got the Rams, New Orleans, and Detroit. Now, a lot of people have picked Detroit. Some people have picked the Rams, and if they're still alive, most people haven't picked New Orleans. New Orleans was probably picked by some people last week. I guess, tell me, where would you go here?
Well, I think I'd stay away from this Detroit-Denver game because Detroit is fumbling right now. They do not look good. They've continued to kind of stumble since they were I think 6 or 7-2 at one point, 8-2 at one point, and now and so they've been stumbling since then, and against teams that are not all that great. And this Denver defense it's in the upper echelon of defenses, and Russell Wilson looks better. So Detroit's much better at home. This game is in Detroit, and Detroit has weapons, and so their defense has kind of fallen back down to earth. That's a problem, but that's not necessarily where Denver's going to beat you. Denver's not going to put a ton of points on the board. So if Detroit's offense can get clicking and Jared Goff can execute, then okay. But I just can't guarantee that. Therefore, that's the one of these 3 games that I might stay away from.
and I'm going to eliminate it too, even though, like I said, most people probably have picked Detroit. Yeah, can you believe this Denver defense? This was the same defense that gave up 70 points to Miami. And we all laughed at them. And we laughed at this team. And they have completely turned it around. I'll tell you something. I don't want to play Denver in the playoffs. They are looking like one of the better teams now. And I would never have thought that. Expectations were high at the beginning of the year with Sean Payton. Just a terrible start to the season, but they seem to have turned it around. All right. I'm afraid that we're going to agree on this. Assuming that you had the Rams, New Orleans, and Detroit, or everybody other than the top three teams that we've talked about this week, I actually feel very confident in this next, in my pick for the week. So I'm going to just tell you it's the LA Rams. So I do have a caveat though, because Michael just told you one of the key reasons that he feels that the Giants upset Green Bay was because they were well rested, right? Because it's not just that they were well rested. You know, they had the full week off. Here we go again. The Rams in Washington. Washington is coming off a bye, while the Rams, not only did they played an overtime game against the Ravens. I'll talk about why, but let me find out if you're on the same wavelength. Is it the Rams or was it New Orleans is your pick this week?
No, it's the Rams. You have a very good offense going against what may be the worst defense in the NFL. But I would have said the Giants were right there with them, but I wouldn't have said that the Packers are one of the best offenses in the NFL. And so this game's in LA, on the short grass or turf, whatever it is they actually have there. The Rams are going to put points on the board. They are clicking right now offensively. Kyron Williams is 100%. Cooper Kupp looks good. Even the backup tight end with Higbee having been out looked really good this last week. Matthew Stafford looks very good. The Rams are going to put points on the board. I just don't think Washington can keep up with them. But I would have said that the Giants were the dredges of defense as well, and the week off really helped them. So yeah, I mean, it's a little bit uncomfortable. I'd certainly go with those top games, like you said, if I could, but the Rams would be my pick out of this three.
Yeah, it's a shame, Michael, that we agree so much. But this is not the first time I'm saying this. This Washington Commanders secondary has been so bad this year, but they took it to a new stratosphere when they traded away their defensive linemen. When they traded away Chase Young and Marcus Sweat. They couldn't put pressure on the quarterback. Last 2 weeks, Washington, 0 sacks, right? What have they done in the last 4 weeks? They've given up in points the last 4 weeks, 29, 31, 45, and 45. They've given up by far the most yards and the most points of any defense in the NFL. And you already said it. I'm not going to repeat it. I like this Ram offense. Cooper Kupp, does he not look like, I mean, after having just a terrible statistic year so far, he actually looked really good last week, and having him with a healthy Puka Nacua and a healthy Stafford now, how often are all these guys healthy at the same time?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, let's talk about New Orleans. It's this would be my second pick, assuming that San Francisco, Miami, and KC are out. I do like New Orleans more than I like Atlanta. It's a little scary because the Giants eliminated my pick the week before, but that's why I didn't make them my official pick. It was the Rams. But I know some people have already picked the Rams. They may have to go down to New Orleans. So this comes down to Tommy DeVito, right? And I want your opinion on this. I mean, I was really down on him, but I was so impressed at how well he played Monday night. 17 for 21. He used his legs so effectively, ran for 71 yards, had a lot of poise on that last drive in the 2-minute drill. How scary is it? Does Tommy DeVito make you? Or is it
He doesn't scare me that much. I mean, this game is it's kind of the opposite. The Giants coming off a nice long break, and now they have a really a short week, right? Having played on Monday in a long, game that went to the very end. They're going to be a little more banged up. New Orleans just coming off playing Carolina. So they had a nice little break. The game's in New Orleans as opposed to in New York. And the Saints are better at home. So, would I rather have picked the Packers last week or the Saints this week? I guess it was the bye that made me a little bit nervous last week, but I do think DeVito looks better. He only threw for 100 some odd yards. I mean, it's not like he was winging the ball. He was dumping the ball off. A couple of really some key turnovers that Jordan Love had in that game. So, you got to take that into account. I think the Saints, I know Carr can turn the ball over. I think there'll be a little bit more ball security. Hoping to see Taysom Hill back. I think that will help. I wouldn't be surprised if the Saints comfortably cover this spread. And so, they should win here. But yeah, I mean, I can ride the DeVito chain. I mean, you got to love that the guy's living at home with his brother, to eating home cooked meals from his mom and hanging out with his brother. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. And the other part of the story to me is this giant offensive line. I mean, they've just been so bad this year. Are they able to now New Orleans is like Green Bay. They don't statistically put a lot of pressure on the quarterback. So can that offensive line hold up with DeVito's mobility to give him at least some time to throw? That's some of the concerns I had, where I don't feel as comfortable with don't feel as comfortable with the Rams against Washington. So just to be clear, my pick for this week is Miami first, then San Francisco or Kansas City. Likely you don't have any of those three teams. So after that, it's the Rams, then New Orleans, then Atlanta.
And I'm not too different than that. I think I would go Kansas City, going to make sure they take care of business in New England, then the Rams, then New Orleans, then Cleveland, and then Atlanta.
Okay. Well, Michael, what a journey this has been this year. Michael and I, just a little behind the scenes for you guys, met in the off season, and we had a tough decision to make because we heard from you guys that you wanted Survivor coverage back. We only gave spotty coverage last year, and we committed to bring NFL Survivor back. I don't think I know we had Survivor shows every week, but I think, Michael, you and I were on every show this year for NFL Survivor. And it was a lot of fun. And I just want to thank two groups of people. First of all, I want to thank you guys, the audience. You guys were so great this year. I personally really appreciate all the positive comments you guys have made in the comment section. That's why we do it. I also appreciate when you guys give your takes. And I think it's wonderful when your takes are different from ours. We have an extremely smart community. If you watch our videos, you should always go down in the comment section and take a peek. I have one other thing I want to say, but I want to get Michael in. Any other reflections on this Survivor season, which has been so unpredictable?
Yeah, no, I love the NFL. It really makes for great entertainment. Hope you guys appreciate what it means, not just for the fantasy sports value, but also for the week to week. So this has been great.
And if you like this, Michael and I talking back and giving our opinions on the NFL, Survivor will be over in the playoffs, but we will be back with shows. Might even do a live show. We got to see if our schedule makes it work, where we break down the playoffs. So please stay tuned. If you are not yet subscribed, make sure you hit that red subscribe button, followed by the bell icon, because we're going to take a little bit of a break. And during that break, you want to make sure you get notified when we get one of our videos. So here's the plan. Starting next week, we are going to continue to do Survivor coverage as long as there are people in our pool. However, we will not be able to do a 30-minute long video here, but Michael and I are going to do the same analysis, and we're going to give you our list of our top 7-8 picks in Survivor in order, so you know where we stand in your pool, depending on what other teams you've already picked. And we're going to make that as a community post. So you should see that in your feed, but if you don't, if you go to our channel, click on the community tab, you will see our post. We'll try to get that out by Wednesday for each week. Last thing I want to say, Michael, is to say a big thank you to you. This was one of my favorite seasons of doing it because of you as a co-host. Look, folks, if you haven't figured it out, I'm not the football expert as far as playing the game. Michael doesn't seem to want to talk about it much on the show, but he played high school football. He coaches high school football. He's also involved in coaching college football this year. He comes with it with an analytical mind that is amazing to me, and it is a great yin to my yang, as my background is more in just general sports psychology, as well as just watching the NFL and playing fantasy sports for the last 30 years. So you were a great co-host, but you're a better friend, and it's been so much fun to do with you this year.
Oh man, Eric, you're too kind. You really make this show with your energy. I'm sure our viewers agree with that. And the work you put in, I think, shows that you know how to analyze this game, as well as frankly, a lot of the coaches that I've worked with historically. So don't be too hard on yourself.
Yeah. Don't name names in case they watch the show.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
All right. Well, so we will see you guys back with videos early in 2024. But until then, stay tuned to the community tab, and we'll break down week 16. Until then, take care, everybody.
Bye-bye. We'll put two videos on the screen that we think you'll enjoy.